Hello there, Casual Dumpling here. Today I have something slightly different for you. In this video I would like to answer a short question, simple question, but hopefully a helpful question to many of you, whether or not using controller in Diablo 4 is any good. I personally, as a Diablo player, was raised playing a mouse and keyboard primarily. Played Diablo 1, 2, 3, 4, at the beginning, all of the other action RPGs like Path of Exile, Last Epoch, Walton, and always with mouse and keyboard. And that's how I started playing Diablo 4. But, something felt off. When I first picked up the game during one of the open beta weekends, I did not enjoy the game. I wasn't planning on buying the game. Until one evening, I was quite lazy. I wasn't feeling like I could, force myself to sit in front of a computer for another couple of hours, in a chair. So I took my laptop, went to the sofa, and plugged in the controller, the Xbox controller, which I have, and decided to give it a try, to try it out. I wasn't even sure if there was a controller support in the game at the time. So yeah, and I've done it, and to my surprise, the game finally felt like Diablo. I'm not a controller player, as I said. The only games which I play with controller are the Souls games, like, Dark Souls, Sekiro, Elden Ring, and whatnot. Other than that, I use only mouse and keyboard. So I was very surprised to find out that I enjoy playing the game like Diablo on a controller more than using traditional setup like mouse and keyboard. So just to answer this question very, very shortly, yes, I think it's very, very usable. I think it's very good. In the controller support for Diablo 4 is very good. I enjoy it a lot. I think in many cases it's far superior to mouse and keyboard, but at the same time, in many cases, the mouse and keyboard will win, and I'll try to go into more details in this video. Now, it all depends, at least in my opinion, on what kind of builds you're playing and what kind of abilities you're using. So some builds will be better with mouse and keyboard, some will be better with the controller. But yeah, I'll also go into more details in this video. So that's a short answer for you. If you want to stick out and listen to the details, be my guest. And that's all what you wanted to hear, then yeah, give it a try and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. Now, let's move to the second part of the video. And something which is, to me, which was very surprising and which is very, very cool about the game is how seamless the transition is. Here's my barbarian, Latrina, he's currently sleeping. Let's wake him up. And as you can see, I can just swing my swords, I can run around, I can run on a horse, no problem. And then, without doing anything, I can just pick up my controller and do the same thing. Jump out of the horse, start attacking, whatnot. So the transition is seamless, you don't feel any delay, I don't really encounter any issues. Very rarely when I pick up a controller I want to do something and it's kind of hibernating or whatever, and it's not really, haven't been using it for a long time. All I have to do sometimes is just press one of those, I don't know, is this one of the menu buttons or whatnot? And then it suddenly remembers that the controller is plugged in and I can use it again. But I don't have to do that very often. Most of the time the transition is completely seamless. Now, the other thing which I really, really like about using a mouse and keyboard is the auto-targeting, which I'm going to show you in a second. Let's get out of town. Let's find some unsuspecting souls, some poor cultists, vampires and whatnot, and let me show you what I mean. When I'm playing a mouse and keyboard, I have to keep attacking enemies. If I want to go here, I have to click on him. I'm gonna have to click on him, and the same situation here. I just click and move toward the enemy. If I want to attack standing in place, I have to, press additional button and whatnot. But if I would like to now order my character to go here and attack anything which is between this place and this place, I don't think there's a way for me to do this. Maybe if there is, let me know in the comments, but with the controller that's no problem. With the controller you will simply keep your mouse designated to this particular skill, in my case Frenzy, press down, and you can just use the one of the bulbs, one of the what's it called? This twig here, to just attack everything which is in the direction you're pressing. And also, if I stand in the middle of them, I don't have to, you know, select target every time. Maybe let's just kill the tumor. I can just, they keep being very, very annoying. I can just have my button pressed down. Maybe fighting vampires is not the best idea, as you can see, because they keep blurring my screen. So maybe I'll just try to find another group. Let's get right in the middle, and I just press my mouse button down, and most of the time the game, if the enemies are close, the game will automatically pick up the nearest enemies. I don't have to retarget them. My barbarian will automatically rotate and attack everything which is within the vicinity of his swords. So that I find is very relaxing and very comfortable to play. And if you look at some of my builds on my channel, you'll notice why they look the way they look, because I prefer the lazy play styles when I can just, like in this case, just have my button pressed down and just move around and let my characters attack. That's why I have a few auto attack builds currently on my channel. Now let's go to the priority. What is also very, very nice about playing with the controller, you don't really have that issue with mouse and keyboard, because you can just target the enemies which you are interested in killing first. You can prioritize them and just attack them. So I was kind of worried that I wouldn't be able to do that using the controller, but the system is actually very smart. It allows you to prioritize certain targets. So as long as you tilt the stick in a direction of the target which you think you should prioritize, like those guys you can see in the top right of the screen right now, the shielding guys with the aura, or the shamans which raise that, you know, the game will very often know which enemies, or the exploding enemies, for example, the small bombs, the shaman, the fallen bombs. So the game will very often know that you should kill those first, and as long as you know, tilt the stick in the direction of that enemy, it will prioritize those enemies. So even if you're surrounded by 20 mobs and you stand inside of them, and you know, like in this case, you know, I'm standing inside, and if I just press left and the attack button, it will know that it should prioritize the dude with the aura. The same here. As you can see, it automatically, as long as I pressed use the stick and pressed it in the direction of the enemy, it automatically knew that, you know, that's the enemy which should die first. And then you can just stand in the middle and have the button pressed down, and everything dies. So that's also very good. That's one of the things I really like when I'm playing with a controller. So just so you know that I'm not lying, maybe another example here. Let's stand right in the middle of them and just tilt the stick in the direction of the priority enemies, and as you can see, they will just simply die. Now, another thing which I really like about the controller is that it will let me know when something dangerous is happening. When you're standing in area of effect abilities which will deal damage to you, and you're playing mouse and keyboard, the only way you will know that something is going on is that your health will start dropping. But there is a poisoned enemy here, and as you can see, not sure if can you see it? It's vibrating. It's very noticeably vibrating and letting you know that maybe you should move. As you can see, I moved, and right as I moved, the controller stopped vibrating. So in my opinion, that's very, very useful, especially considering how dangerous poison affix is in the Nightmare dungeons. I think it's still bugged, so I would say that playing with the controller gives you a slight advantage in terms of dealing with poisoned affix, because you'll immediately know that you're standing in it. So yeah, that's something which is very, very useful. Another area in which I think the controller is slightly ahead of the mouse and keyboard setup is dealing with loot. And what I mean by that is dealing with chests, dealing with ores and herbs which you have to pick up when you're playing the game. So when you're playing with a controller, you can just run in a certain direction, press the button, and the stuff will just jump out, and most of the time you will not even have to stop, you know. But when you're playing with a mouse and keyboard, You have to target every single time this particular bush or particular ore, particular herb, and do that manually. And of course, it's not a huge issue, it's not a major problem, but it's just this small convenience which you have when you're playing with a controller. Another thing which I really like when I'm using the controller is that, you know, playing certain builds, in my opinion, is just much more enjoyable. For example, when I'm playing my Frenzy Barbarian here, my goal is go to the maximum amount of Fury, so I can activate my Edge Masters, and I can also profit from Ramaldani's Magnum Opus. And then I want to use my double swings to put vulnerable debuff on the enemies every like 2 seconds or whatnot. So this, for example, pairs really well with not here. Let's go to the offensive aspects, and the for example, aspect of the expectant. So I can stack it up with basic attacks and then release it, the effect, with core skill. Or maybe there is also another one, aspect of limited race, when you're stacking it up, when you generate Fury and release it with your core skill. So when you're playing with a mouse and keyboard, of course, it's not problematic, but you have to just attack enemies with your left mouse click, and then press your right mouse button to release that bonuses, to activate those bonuses. And that's not really problematic, of course, that's very enjoyable to play, but in my opinion, when it comes to comfort, the controller will win again in this category. Because, for example, let's say in my case I have basic attack and frenzy assigned to A, and I have double swing assigned to X, so I don't have to rotate between those buttons, you know. All I have to do is put my this part of the my finger on the A and just keep it pressed down, and every couple of seconds I can just, you know, at the same time activate double swing. Of course you can't see it right now because I don't have any Fury, but it makes playing these kinds of build much more enjoyable, because you can just, there's certain cadence to it, there's certain rhythm, which is much easier to achieve on a controller than it is when you're using mouse and keyboard. And I'm sure there are plenty of examples like this. For example, when you're using a channeling skills, I think I also seen it work with my Incinerate Sorcerer. Very comfortable feature, and I like it a lot. Let's move forward. If, like me, you're a player who enjoys playing other games like Dark Souls, then you most likely have some sort of habits, mechanical habits, that you build up over the years, right? So, for example, I am very used to having my dodge buttons on the B. In Diablo 4, when you're playing using a controller, you can do the same thing. You can bind your dodge on the B, or whatever button you're using in your Souls games to, you know, troll enemies and just, you know, avoid attacks. I was surprised at how easier it made the game for me. I felt that dodging using mouse and keyboard, it always felt kind of clunky. It's much more precise, I have to be honest, it's much more precise and accurate. But in terms of comfort and being used to certain things, I prefer the control. Now let's move to the cons. Let's move to the things and areas in which I think the mouse and keyboard is definitely far superior compared to your regular controller. As I said in one of my pros section about the controller, targeting is easier with a mouse and keyboard. You know, you can get the job done, and the system with a controller is very smart. But if you want to be precise, then the mouse and keyboard will always win, in my opinion. Next, which I would like to talk about, is the inventory management. I would say that it is, you know, it's possible to manage your inventory with the controller. It's not really that big of a problem. You can just move around with your D-pad, you can switch the menus and whatnot. The same with, you know, assigning Paragon skill points and skill tree points. But to be honest, I personally, whenever I have to do inventory management, I switch to mouse and keyboard, to my wireless mouse and keyboard most of the time, and just do it from here, because it's much more comfortable. And I'll show you this on a particular example. Let's say, so not only it's more comfortable when you're trying to, you know, sort the loot or whatnot after a nightmare dungeon run or whatever, when you want to compare items, but also when you would like to store items in your chest. And maybe let's go to the chest, let's go to the stash, and I'll give you a short explanation as to what I mean. Let's look at this example. I have a stash tab here and I have 4 empty spaces, and if I would like to, you know, put this mace in here, I can do that with a mouse and keyboard. If I want to put it in here, of course I can do that. But when you're using a controller, it will automatically assign that item to the first available item from the top, from the left, if I'm not mistaken. So it will always go in here, as you can see. So if you have a very particular way in which you are assigning your items in your stash tabs, then this might be a small problem to you. You know, please disregard the mess in my stash tab. I have a couple of characters and it's a complete mess, and it's basically a reason I don't want to play anymore because I'm storing all of the aspects. But I digress. Sorry. So yeah, inventory management is definitely much easier. Assigning abilities in your skill points, much easier. Planning your builds in here, much easier. Assigning Paragon boards and whatnot, much easier with mouse and keyboard. So in this aspect, mouse and keyboard wins for me. Now there's also one very major flaw to the controller, which I think will discourage many people from playing with a controller. At the beginning of the video I said that whether or not you choose to play on a controller or with mouse and keyboard, it mostly depends on what kind of build you're playing and what kind of abilities you're using. Okay, so with this barbarian, all I do is I pull enemies, I press my frenzy button, push down, and occasionally I'll use double swing. So, and sometimes if I need, I'll use challenging shout and ground stomp and whatnot. So this is a very straightforward build. I don't have to deal with any difficult or more complex mechanics. I don't have any targeting abilities, and all of my abilities are basically close range. In case of those chains, how they are called, steel grasp, it's not really a problem because you can target them. You can just use your stick and it will fire the chains in a fan-like manner in the direction which you have pressed down your stick. However, that's mostly working because you don't have to be very precise. Let's see what happens when I, for example, would like to use charge on this barbarian. And charge is a type of ability or leap. I'll put both of them on my bar. And these types of abilities require precision, and these types of abilities are something which you would really want to use in a precise way. So now when I'm using mouse and keyboard with charge, I can charge whenever I want. I can do a short charge right here, or I can do a long charge right here. So that's going to happen. Let's do a quick another example. Now this time let's make a very quick charge from here to the demon, and it works. No problem. The same with leap. I can leap very, very closely. I can basically leap in at the same place I'm basically standing right now, or very far away like here. And my barbarian will do that without any problem. If I would like to jump from a very short distance, let's jump in the same place we're standing. Also, no problem. Your barbarian will do that. The mouse and keyboard is very precise. However, when you're using a controller, the direction which you're pressing and you're facing or whatever, the targeting system will automatically target the nearest enemies. So the same thing will happen when you would like to target with a fireball or any sort of long-range ability. If you would like to target enemies which are in a very short, very close vicinity to you, it will not be a problem. If I would like to shoot my fireball with my sorcerer over here, it will be quite difficult to target that enemy in case another enemy would stand between them. So let's make, I hope I'm explaining it in a quite easy to understand way, but maybe let me show you what I mean with charge. If I place charge, it will be a medium distance charge. But when I press leap, let's see what happens when I press leap. That happens. That happens when you don't have any direction selected. You will basically leap in place. But let's try to leap to the left and see what happens. Again, as you can see, it's a medium distance leap. So it will be very difficult, or not really difficult, impossible for me to charge to the far edge of the screen or to leap to the far edge of the screen using a controller. Logged into my sorcerer because I wanted to show you some more examples. The problems which I just explained with movement abilities like trample, charge, leap, teleport and whatnot. You will face the same problems when you like to use your ranged abilities. So that is why I hope I already mentioned it in this video that the controller is much better suited for melee builds compared to ranged abilities. Of course, it's still very possible to play, it's still very good to play, but you will not be able to accurately target some enemies some of the time, because when you're surrounded with monsters, as I already said, this short vicinity around your character will be prioritized. So for example, if you are surrounded by monsters and you have one monster here which you would like to kill because it's a priority target for you, it will be quite hard for you to target that particular monster with the controller. So that's one of the issues. And another issue is there are, I'm sure, a couple of very particular skills in the game which the way you place them, the way you target them is actually very, very important and can cause quite a lot of the difference. And I'll show you an example here what I'm trying to clumsily explain here. So let's look at the firewall. The placement is very important. The firewall will always behave in the same way, so you can predict how the firewall will be placed depending on where you place your cursor. So it will always be placed perpendicularly to your character. So for example, if I place it right here, I can expect that the firewall will appear here, right? The same way here. Distance from the character perpendicular to my character, and it will look like that. You can use it to your advantage in many situations. For example, when you're running through a corridor and you're kiting enemies, you don't have to really do that, right? And just spawn firewalls behind you, because it's not very effective. You can just get to the corner, cast it like that, and it will spread alongside throughout the entire corridor. At the moment it's not that long because I changed my build, but with proper build the firewall can be quite long. So that's just one of the examples when you're playing with a controller, you don't really have that kind of a controller, right? You can see it will place them at the edge of the screen most of the time, near the walls, sometimes in the middle of the screen. It would be very difficult for me to do the same thing, because I could run to the edge of the corridor, place myself correctly, and hopefully maybe try to get it. But as you can see, it's not working very well, and if there will be enemies surrounding me right now, it would be almost impossible to place the firewall the way I want it to be placed. So yeah, that's another thing to keep in mind. If you have abilities where positioning and placement of those abilities accurate placement of those abilities is important, I would say that mouse and keyboard are definitely superior. So yeah, that's one of the disadvantages of playing with controller, a very serious one in my opinion. So some builds, I played my sorcerer primarily with mouse and keyboard. My druid and my barbarian, I'm using the controller because it's just much more enjoyable to play. Okay, so that's basically all. I'll try to list some of the things which I mentioned already on the screen so you can compare the list of pros against the list of cons. In my opinion, controller is very good in Diablo 4. I enjoy playing with it. In my opinion, it's far superior in some situations, and in other, unfortunately, the mouse and keyboard still wins, but I think that's good. This gives you some sort of versatility, and yeah, I quite enjoyed it. What I really also like about the controller, is that I can, just play my Diablo for the first time in my life on a TV, sitting on a couch after days of work without having to buy a console. So that's a big plus for me. Also, I've noticed that it's much easier for me to play Diablo to have longer gaming sessions with the controller because I have much lower strain on my wrists, on my fingers, and whatnot, and I don't get tired so easily. So that may be good, may be bad, depending on how you look at it. You should definitely take some breaks from time to time, but that's also something to consider. Anyway, that's it from my side. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any tips for me as to how I could improve my play using a controller on a PC, please let me know. Thank you for watching and have a nice evening. Bye bye.